In Sightsavers, we believe that nobody needs to go blind based on avoidable causes, and we also believe in a world where persons with disabilities can live an equitable and fulfilling life just like every other person. We've done a lot. There was an existing national policy on inclusive education. Sightsavers decided to pilot the implementation of that policy, and it gave birth to our project called SMILE, Support Mainstreaming for All to Learn Equally. This was an attempt at implementing the already existing national policy on inclusive education. Now, we wanted to test and see if it is possible to integrate disability into mainstream schools. So we picked Kaduna State. Reason being that it's a pilot project and we already have an existing relationship with the government of Kaduna State. So we had an enabling environment to implement. And in Kaduna State, we picked one local government, which is Jama'ah local government. And the reason is that we followed the data. As at then, in Kaduna State, that was the only local government that had some sort of data for children with disabilities. So we picked Jama'ah local government and we piloted in 8 schools, 8 public schools, where we used the child functioning module developed by the UNICEF. We used that to screen the children at the point of entry. When they gain admission into the school, they are screened to determine if they have a disability or not. The child functioning module was developed through the Washington Group of Questions, which is the gold standard when it comes to assessing disabilities in children. At the end of the day, we were able to record a lot of gains, situations where parents who used to hide their children with disabilities started bringing their children to school. Situations where they are retained, because it's one thing for the child to be admitted into school, is another thing for the child to remain in school. So they are admitted into school and they, retain, they stay. The government has done a lot. Nigeria has done a lot through partners, through putting aside some funding, but they can still do more. We need accessible schools. We need accessible learning and teaching materials. We need capacity of our teachers to be built around disability inclusion. The government has provided the policies. They have provided the enabling environment at federal level. It's now left to the states to implement. Jigawa State has even gone a step ahead to employ teachers with disabilities. As at December last year, they have employed about 23 teachers with disabilities. It's easier when I'm bringing my child to school, if I have a child that has, for example, a physical disability, and I go to the school and I see a teacher with the same type of disability as my child, I will be more confident in bringing my child there, because I believe that someone who understands what my child is going through is there to guide my child. That is one. Secondly, I see that this person has the same disability that my child has, and he has succeeded and gotten to this point in his life. That means my child can also, get to that point in his career. So the government has done a lot, but there's still room for improvement. That's the biggest room available on earth, the room for improvement. Well, the good thing about policies is that they are living documents. As the implementation is going on, as it unfolds, there's something we call adaptive management. You document the gaps so that when it is time for those policies to be reviewed, you take into consideration some of the gaps that has been encountered while implementing. So for now, I would say the biggest challenge or the biggest gap is full implementation of the policy. As for policy, we have policies. Like I mentioned, we have the National Policy on Inclusive Education. We have the Standard Operating Procedure that goes hand in hand with the policy for inclusive education. We also have that of UBEC. But the gap now is putting policy into practice. That is the only gap that I can say for now. Happy International Day for Education to everyone, and to also remind us that a chain is as strong as its weakest link. If we say education for all, we should leave no one behind. And for us to be able to achieve inclusive education, we need to put in place reasonable accommodations. What I mean by reasonable accommodations, we need to put accessible classrooms, accessible schools, we need to put accessible restrooms, we need to put accessible learning and teaching materials. We also need to have qualified teachers who have the capacity of teaching learners with disability. And if we do that, inclusion will be achieved.